Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. Welcome, everyone, to FOMO Friday. Yes, we love to bring you this FOMO Friday report every single Friday. And many have asked why we call it FOMO Friday. And that is simply because we know you're not listening to propaganda media anymore. And so we want to make sure that you know what's going on around the world. And we bring you the stories that you probably should know about. Many you probably already know about. Maybe some you don't. And maybe some we dig into a little bit deeper. But that's why we bring you FOMO Friday, and because we don't want you to have that fear of missing out. And from a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes the really big story of the week, and that has to be Donald Trump's tariffs. Now, the White House wants Americans to trust President Donald Trump's plans as economic uncertainty looms around the massive tariffs Trump imposed on nearly every country in the world on Wednesday. Stocks tumbled after the opening bell Thursday morning as Wall Street anxiously awaits to see if Trump's Liberation Day tariffs will turn into a full-blown trade war. Now, Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said during an interview on CNN that Americans should trust the president's economic formula. Quote, "To anyone on Wall Street this morning, I would say trust in President Trump," she said. "This is a president who is doubling down on his proven economic formula from his first term. We saw wages increase. We saw inflation come down. We had a Trump energy boom. We had the largest tax cuts in history, and that's exactly what the president intends to do." Now, in a post sharing a clip of the interview on X, Leavitt wrote this: "With historic tax cuts, massive deregulation, and our energy industry unleashed, we will see an economic boom in the months ahead. Don't bet against President Trump." Now, Vice President J.D. Vance told Fox and Friends Thursday morning that Trump's tariffs are a big change, but added that we needed a big change. President Trump, and this is a quote, "President Trump is taking this economy in a different direction. He ran on that. He promised it. And now he's delivering." That's what Vance told Fox News host Lawrence Jones. And he added that we have manufacturing disappearing. That is not working for Americans, and we've got to take this country in a different direction. President Trump has labeled his tariffs as reciprocal, but the tariffs appear to be based on the United States trade deficit divided by imports, not based on other countries' tariffs on the U.S. goods, as first pointed out by anonymous X account. And the Trump administration, however, has maintained that it literally calculated tariff and non-tariff barriers. Now, Trump argues that foreign nations have been ripping off Americans for decades, imposing harsh tariffs on U.S. exports while gaining free access to the American market. Trump wrote in his order that despite a commitment to the principle of reciprocity, the trade relationship between the United States and its trade partners have become highly unbalanced, particularly in recent years, as they say. Now, most of Americans' biggest trading partners, such as China and Japan, South Korea, and Vietnam, were hit with steep tariffs on Wednesday. Some nations reportedly want to negotiate new trade agreements with the White House, while China and the European Union have said they will retaliate with more tariffs on U.S. goods. Now, Yahoo Finance reported that U.S. stocks cratered on Thursday in their worst one-day sell-off since 2020, with the Dow Jones crumbling almost 1,700 points as the President Trump's surprisingly steep Liberation Day tariffs sent shockwaves through markets worldwide. Now, the tech-heavy NASDAQ composite led the sell-off, plummeting 6%. The S&P 500 sank nearly 5%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average tumbled 4%. The Dow's 1,700-point drop was the fifth worst in history. So, as you probably know, I am a supporter of President Donald Trump because of what he gets done. But I will call him out when I think that he's making a mistake, and I do think that he is making a mistake here. Now we'll see if this plays out long term. Only time will tell. But new tariffs are not reciprocal. These new tariffs, that they're, hey, if they're reciprocal, if meaning that if a country has a tariff on us, and we let's say 5% on something, and we tariff the same thing back 5%, I have no problem with that. I have no problem with a tariff if it comes to national security type issues. These are not those, though. These are based on a number of factors, including trade deficits. And a trade deficit isn't necessarily a terrible thing. Like it's been pointed out, I can have a trade deficit with my local Walmart, right? I give them a lot of money, and I don't think they've ever given me money for something that I've sold to them. Okay, there's a huge trade deficit that I have with my local Walmart, but does that mean that this is a terrible thing? No, it does not, because I still get something back of value. And so trade deficits in themselves aren't an evil thing. We have open trade agreements with other countries like Israel and others, that basically, like for example, Israel has zero tariff on us. Okay, they have no tariffs on our goods, and yet we just instituted a 17% tariff on them. I just don't see why. Okay, now it's going to be a drain on our economy, I think, and a distraction at least to the other things that really need to get done. President Trump has been doing some really wonderful things, and this is only going to distract him, I think. And it gives the Democrats just something to rally around, which they obviously are already starting to do. I just hope that this is just the start of negotiations, because he's a very good negotiator, and this, I'm hoping, is just giving him the ammunition for negotiations, and then he'll rescind many of these. But we'll see. All right, so let's get into a couple other things. A man was arrested in Idaho over this last weekend after he allegedly drove into a pro-Trump counter-protester outside a Tesla dealership as a group of people gathered to protest Elon Musk and the Trump administration's government cuts. Christopher Talbot, he's 70 years old, was arrested after allegedly hitting a 49-year-old man at the anti-Musk rally on Saturday. ABC News reported this, and they said, according to police, quote, reports indicate the victim had been driving a truck with pro-Trump flags and had just parked and exited his vehicle when Talbot struck him with his car. The victim drove himself to the hospital after sustaining non-life-threatening injuries, and this was according to those officials. Around 30 anti-Musk demonstrators. This is a little bit funny, okay? Because this was a anti-Trump, anti-Tesla, Tesla Takedown type thing. And there were 30 anti-Musk demonstrators that showed up to the Idaho dealership on Saturday and were met by 200 counter-protesters, according to the Meridian Police Department. Those were the numbers. Authorities, 30 to 200. Authorities alleged that Talbot made an obscene gesture toward the pro-Trump counter-protester before hitting him with his car, and Talbot was arrested at his home after police traced his license plate number. So it was basically a hit and run in this case, and probably you could consider it even a hate crime, right? He was booked into the Ada County Jail and charged with one count of aggravated battery, which is a felony, by the way. In a statement, the police department urged people to respect everyone's right to protest and express their First Amendment right without resorting to violence. Again, you could add this to the violent left. It's just another instance of the violent left. While most of the protests have remained peaceful, some anti-Musk demonstrators have resorted to violence to protest Musk's influence on government spending cuts. Last week, An incendiary device was found outside a Tesla showroom in Austin, Texas, and had to be promptly removed by police bomb squad. In Las Vegas earlier this month, a suspected suspect allegedly lit two Tesla vehicles on fire and shot them at a Tesla facility in what law enforcement officials describe as a targeted attack. So it wasn't just some random thing. Numerous videos posted online have also shown perpetrators keying and damaging parked Tesla vehicles. In one instance, anti-Musk protesters were targeted while demonstrating when a man in Florida was arrested and charged with assault for allegedly driving a car toward a crowd of protesters there. No one was injured in that incident, but according to the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, the protesters had to move out of the way in order to avoid being struck by the vehicle. Numerous anti-Musk protests have popped up across the country as groups often gather near Tesla dealerships to protest the electric car companies on their owner and senior Trump advisor. On Saturday, over 200 organized Tesla Takedown protesters, that's what they called it, Tesla Takedown, and these protesters took place in the United States, Canada, and Europe, according to CNN. A Business Insider reporter who attended two Tesla protests in Michigan wrote that the protesters, quote, were primarily people over the age of 65, white, and retired from jobs that depended on public funding as teachers, professors at local universities, and social workers. Now, does that... I mean, I know stereotypes are bad, but I mean, seriously, you could have called that one, right? So anyway, something that was kind of interesting. They came out with an investigation here just recently, and this was a little bit surprising. A multi-billion-dollar federal program pays hardened adult criminals and runaway teens to live together in dormitory-like environments run by companies with lucrative contracts, leading to thousands of young people being hurt in recent years. This and you may have heard of this department. It's the Department of Labor's Job Corp, and it operates 131 facilities where low-income people ages 16 to 24 can live while being paid to gain high school diplomas and certification in trades like plumbing and those type of things. Created in the 1960s, it has transformed into something between a prison and a college, gathering people from the margins, as they call it, of society, and housing them in cinder block dormitories where they fight. There's rapes that go on, selling of drugs to each other. Data inclusively obtained by the Daily Wire shows all of this and examples of all of these. More than 500 sexual assaults have been reported at Job Corp facilities in the last 3 years, including a male student climbing through a female student's window and raping her as she slept, according to a source with knowledge of the program. Inner city 24-year-olds are housed with vulnerable 16-year-old dropouts who are exploited by predators. Last year, a 16-year-old girl who identified as a transgender boy and whom the Job Corps apparently enabled to be separated from her parents was assigned to a room with a 23-year-old man at the Glenmont Job Corps near Albany, New York. Demetrius Fair allegedly intimidated his roommate into performing oral sex on him before pinning her to the bed and raping her. Then there were 4,600 reported violent assaults, 4,600, and 8,000 drug-related incidents over the past 3 years. And this is what the sources say. And those numbers likely significantly understate the reality, since a tolerance for criminal behavior is epidemic to the culture, and only the most severe incidences are recorded. Eligibility requirements say that only people on welfare or living in poverty are eligible for the Job Corps. that refugees and non-citizens parolees are eligible, and that no individual shall be denied enrollment in the Job Corps solely on the basis of contact with criminal justice system, except for the disqualifying felony convictions of murder, child abuse, or a crime involving rape or sexual assault. Those are the only prerequisites. The program requires that applicants not be able to read at higher than an 8th grade level, saying they must be unable to compute or solve problems at a level necessary to function on the job and in the individual's family or in society, or he must be homeless, a runaway, a high school dropout, or a victim of sex trafficking. Staff are trained to tell applicants, quote, I see that you have, and they describe gang-related behavior, symbol, or activity. Do you agree that if you are admitted to Job Corps, you will not use, wear, or display this behavior or that symbol or whatever it is they're talking about? According to local news articles, in 2024, just last year, 23-year-old Rudolfo Mesa was charged with attempted criminal sexual penetration of a child for his alleged conduct at the Roswell, New Mexico campus. A teen girl was standing around a patio with two other girls when Mesa allegedly grabbed her by the wrist, exposing himself and pushing her down. Mesa eventually pulled up his pants, told the girls goodnight, and walked away, according to the Roswell Daily Record. Mesa grinned in his mugshot, by the way, so he was obviously proud of what he did. The same year, a teacher at the Pinellas County Job Corps in Florida, 54-year-old Ralph Kitzmiller was charged with 6 counts of transmitting child pornography at the Trapper Creek Job Corps in Montana. 2 students allegedly teamed up to sexually assault someone in their room. And Coda Mishdixty Selt Hoskins, I guess is how you pronounce that name, 18 anyway, and Caden Anthony Canano is 19, and both of those guys were charged. Also in 2024, 19-year-old Paxton Avery Allman, I guess is an easier one to say, a member of the Altbury Job Corps in Indiana, was arrested for allegedly uploading child sexual abuse material. Democrats have cast the Job Corps program in altruistic rhetoric about helping the marginalized become productive members of society. But participants have said that the clientele is so overwhelmingly toxic that well-intentioned participants are more likely to be dragged down. On Reddit, one resident of the Sierra Nevada Job Corps in Nevada said it, quote, was the scariest time of my life, with, quote, so much harassment, knives, guns, gangs, rapes, attacks, and more. Most of the 16 to 18-year-olds were people from juvie who were given a choice of juvenile detention or going to Job Corps. If someone said you did something, a mob of people would come beat the you-know-what out of you, even if it wasn't you, he wrote. We also had samosas at the Job Corps, tons of them. One was caught in the air conditioning ducts trying to get into another guy's room during the night. And in December, a continuing resolution funding bill agreed to by Republican and Democrats would have locked in $1.8 billion annually in funding for Job Corps through 2030. But the bill did not ultimately pass, by the way. Congress in it was a bill that Senator Christopher Murphy, a Democrat from Connecticut, put forward. But the Job Corps pays students to attend the Job Corps, including $1,200 upon completion, and recruiters lure them in with this. The program is a bonanza of contractors and management training corporations and things like this. In fact, these corporations have raked in $200 million, just one corporation alone out of Utah. Adams and Associates Incorporated out of Nevada took in $158 million, and Career Systems Development Corp in New York earned $82 million from Job Corp. A source of knowledge of the situation said that Trump administration is closely examining the program, suggesting the $1.8 billion program's 50-year run could be nearing an end, though contractors are still likely to lobby to preserve the revenue stream, of course. And in the 2010s, Job Corp fights became a viral sensation on YouTube. A typical video was titled "Clearfield Job Corp Punk A N stole the homie's bucket and ended up getting decked in the face." So anyway, there's been a lot of stuff that's gone on here, and it looks like maybe, just maybe, it might all be coming to an end. We'll have to see, and we'll keep an eye on this for you. Well, I wanted to move on to something that wasn't within the country of the U.S., but it kind of is relevant to us in many ways. The French court has now banned Marine Le Pen, who is highly likely to win the next election in France, from seeking public office for 5 years. The court convicted her of misusing European Union funds. The court ruled that Le Pen and other members of her party illegally used 4.4 million euros, the equivalent to $4.8 million, in the EU funding that was earmarked for assistance helping lawmakers in the European Parliament with their work. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. Now, they said that that Monday's sentence bars Le Pen from seeking public office for the next 5 years, thrusting her far-right party into limbo. So Le Pen, if you don't know, is a part of the Conservative Party there, and she is now being barred from running for the next 5 years. Now, Le Pen also received a 4-year prison sentence. Half of that term was suspended, the judges said, adding that she could serve the remaining 2 years by using an electronic bracelet or other alternatives to a jail time. The ruling takes Le Pen out of the contention for the 2027 race unless she can win a swift appeal, and Le Pen had been expected to enter that contest as the frontrunner, as President Emmanuel Macron will be term limited and other prominent contenders have yet to emerge. This is crazy, but this is part and parcel of the broader attempt by left-wing judiciary activists across the globe to stop populist politicians from being able to run. We saw it with President Trump, where the DOJ went after him for supposedly crimes that same crimes for which they let Joe Biden off the hook. We saw it with New York, where New York Attorney General filed a civil fraud lawsuit in an attempt to stop then candidate Trump, of course. And we have seen it in Brazil, where the entire judicial apparatus has been brought down on the head of the former president of Brazil there, in favor of Da Silva, who was then freed by the same exact judiciary. So again, the judiciary stepping in to put their thumb on the scales of the election. We've seen it in Romania, where the president won there an election in 2024, and then the judiciary decided the election had been rigged by the Russians and annulled it. So they just completely did away with it. Said, well, we think the Russians had something to do with it, so we're going to throw it out. We've seen it in Israel, where the Attorney General of Israel has been targeting Benjamin Netanyahu on specious charges for literally years, and the judiciary kept saying that Netanyahu can't perform the basic functions of an executive, such as fire his attorney general or fire anyone in the executive branch for that matter. And now we're seeing it in France. So we're seeing it all over. And it's absolutely amazing to watch these unelected officials going out of their way to thwart the will of the people in supposed democracies. And it's really insane. I mean, you want to talk about undermining democracy itself. This undermines democracy because the reaction to this is, okay, what if we just overthrow the judicial institutions? The judicial institutions are a key part of a functioning society. You have to have the ability to take your grievances somewhere and not, but yet not have them overstep their bounds, right? Um, and why do I feel like this is a put up job here? Because it is, right? Because it takes effect immediately. The point is to get her out of the elections. So they put off a bunch of stuff. They even cut her sentence in half and all kinds of things, but immediately she can't run for office. So that proves to you what's happening here. The point is to get her out of the elections, and thus they're suspending her jail sentence, but they're not suspending her ban from running. Le Pen had denied the charges, testifying in court that it was appropriate for the assistants to perform other party-related work because they were political aides, not direct employees of the European Parliament. In other words, if the European Parliament didn't want them focused solely on party-related tasks, then perhaps they should have hired them directly. But rather than they paid them in order to do a job, to get a job done. They weren't working for the European Union. They were working for Le Pen. I mean, sounds like a strong defense to me, doesn't it? To you, is the idea here that Le Pen, desperately needs a couple of million euros in order to pay off her political party? I feel like she probably could have raised it, but her party's pretty big in France, and it looked like she was definitely somebody who was going to win. So like I say, this is obviously election tampering, and it's proven because of the fact that they want this to take hold immediately. Again, the charges were trumped up. These charges of fraud are just over the top here, because it's not fraud. These people were working for her. The European Union hired to have a job done, and these people did it, but they weren't working for the European Parliament. And so to say, well, they can't work for Le Pen because they're working for the European Parliament, they weren't. They were working for her. They were her employees. So anyway, wanted to end today on a little bit of a somber note. A lot of times I like to have something uplifting, but I didn't want to go without acknowledging actor Val Kilmer, who played iconic roles, including Bruce Wayne in Batman Forever, the Doc Holliday in Tombstone. He died on Tuesday in Los Angeles at the age of 65. And the Hollywood star had previously been diagnosed with throat cancer in 2014. He was born in L.A. The actor built his career as a leading man in the 1980s and 90s, starring in projects like Top Gun, of course. You probably remember that role, right? And then the role there that probably got him most famous, I would say. Real Genius. He was in Real Genius, Willow, where he actually met his wife on the set there, Heat, and The Saint. So all 1980s, late 80s and 90s type films. The actor also played Jim Morrison in Oliver Stone's The Doors in 1991. And Kilmer memorized, get this, the lyrics to all of the Morrison songs before his audition, and wore clothes like the musician for almost a year. So anyway, he was definitely someone who had a real skill for acting, and I think was pretty smart at what he did, and he will be missed. I would love to hear your favorite movie that he was in. And any kind of comment that you might have. We entertain those here, uncommonsensepodcast.com. And of course, we're on YouTube. And thank you for listening. This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.